Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you will have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey veterinary habbers, today I chat with Dr. Robert J. Silver. He is a founding member of the Veterinary Cannabis Society and a member of the Cannabis Clinician Society. Dr. Silver currently serves as the Chief Veterinary Officer for Real Mushrooms, a Canadian medicinal mushroom company. In our conversation, he discusses the various types of mushrooms used in animals, the formulations he's helped to develop, and he also dives into some of the latest research. If you're intrigued by this topic, you might also want to check out podcast 15, which is way back in the archives. We had a great discussion with Virl about phytotherapy, and she discussed using teas, edible flowers, and mushrooms in vet rehab practice. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Jean from Jeans_Cabrero for the shout out on Instagram. Thank you, Jean, so much. Please, can you reach out to me at meg@onlinepethealth.com. I'd love to gift you a limited edition veterinary rehabilitation podcast mug. If you're not a member already, our amazing online community of vet rehabbers from all over the world gathers in our Facebook groups. If you haven't joined yet, head over to Facebook, request to be a part of the action. Our groups include small animal vet rehabbers, equine vet rehabbers, hydro vet rehabbers, and our business vet rehabbers. And that one's for those juggling patient care and running your own vet rehab practice. We regularly share tips in there, advice, and host live sessions with experts to support you along your vet rehab journey. A quick word from our sponsors. Nada first developed her courses at the Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certificate program in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curricle Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. The courses include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curricle Vet at curacall.org. All right, let's go learn about some mushrooms. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here today.
Robert, for the listeners, won't you introduce yourself and just tell them how you started working with mushrooms for pets?
Okay, well, I'm Dr. Rob Silver. I'm a holistic and integrative veterinarian of 40 years of experience and developed a lot of expertise over the years with the use of herbs and nutraceuticals and dietary therapies, as well as cannabis. And as mushroom products began to become available in a format that could be used medicinally, I became involved in using medicinal mushrooms as well. And I've found a great deal of value in their use. They have a wide variety of applications. And currently, because of my interest in creating products with medicinal mushrooms in them and trying to promote the value of their use to veterinarians and to pet parents, I'm currently Chief Veterinary Officer for Real Mushrooms, which is a Canadian mushroom company that has been whose parent company Namex has been cultivating mushrooms under USDA organic standards for the last 30 years. That's a little bit about me. I'm sure I'll share some more as we move on here today. Mm-hmm.
So, Robert, is this something that's come from human medicine? Was it something that was first started in human medicine, or is this something that has completely started new in animals?
Well, when you go to the world literature and you look at what has been published regarding the use of mushrooms, there is much less published in our veterinary species, certainly quite a bit in laboratory animal species. But mushrooms have primarily over the years been primarily the focus of mushroom use over the years has been primarily with humans. But as our culture has been changing and expanding, and as pets are becoming part of our family, people are wanting to extend the same benefits they've been receiving from the mushrooms to their four-legged family members. And so as mushroom products have become, standardized and easier to take, and they're not just, these crude, mushrooms that are dried and powdered, and, you kind of have, now they're in capsules. And for pets, I've got soft chews and palatable powders and things like that. We can now get more usage of it. I think that the use of mushrooms for pets really expanded quite a bit. I don't know what that word was I was searching for, but really expanded quite a bit in 2012 with the publication of a paper out of the University of Pennsylvania that was sponsored by a Chinese mushroom growing company that has a patent for a particular type of extract of the turkey tail mushroom. And this study in 2012 showed that, and it was a small study, only 5 dogs per cohort, three different groups, and they were basically trying to find out proof of concept and what level of mushroom administration would produce some kind of clinical benefit that could be measured, and they could then go on to the clinical trial. And what they found really surprised them, which was that the dogs that were in the highest dosage group actually survived longer than the dogs that were in terms of historical survival times for dogs that were splenectomized and received chemotherapy as well. That got everybody's attention. Certainly a lot of us holistic folks, were really excited to see there's proof, that this stuff works. The oncologists were saying, hey, hang on, let's settle down. There's only 5 dogs per group. I don't think we can make broad, generalizations from that, but let's see what happens with the follow-up study. Took 10 years for them to create to recruit the patients and follow them through their lifespan with the hemangiosarcoma, which is I forgot to mention that. So we were measuring the ability of this mushroom to remediate the inevitable terminal effects of hemangiosarcoma on dogs. And so the follow-up study had 100 dogs, and the extract is called PSP, which is a mycelial extract from the turkey tail mushroom. And they had 50 dogs that were receiving just the PSP alone. These were dogs that had been diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma and splenectomized and staged, and the owners had refused chemotherapy. So they were instead chose to take this mushroom extract, whereas 25 dogs received chemotherapy and the mushroom extract, and 25 dogs received chemotherapy and the mushroom extract placebo. And what they found was that the results weren't quite as spectacular as they had found in the 2012 study, but they did learn some very good metrics about how to prognosticate better with hemangiosarcoma. They found that dogs that entered with a higher hematocrit had a better chance of survival, or a longer chance of survival. Male dogs seemed to have an advantage over female dogs, something that we had never seen before. And in that early study, with the 5 dogs in each group, most of the dogs in the group that did really well were males. But they found that, dogs that had were just on the PSP alone survived with quality of life for about 8 months in terms of a median survival time there. Dogs that had chemotherapy were about maybe 310 days. Dogs that had chemotherapy plus PSP, not the dogs that had chemotherapy plus the placebo PSP survived for about 310 days, and dogs that were on the chemotherapy plus the actual PSP survived for about 450 days. So even though statistically they weren't able to prove that the mushroom showed advantages, numerically you could see that it did. And the study was really good for us veterinarians who have these patients coming in on a daily basis, and the owner wants to know what to do. Is my dog going to die so soon? Why should I do anything? Or how do we know how long the dog will survive, and what can we do to help it along its pathway? So I think that set of studies really kind of brought home the value of mushrooms. And since then, we've been seeing a huge expansion, both in the consumer marketplace as well as in the veterinary marketplace, in terms of products that have mushrooms in them that are designed to create value, benefits, medical benefits in pets. Like I said, I digressed a bit there with that question, but I think it was good information.
So obviously you're talking about hemangiosarcoma, so you're obviously using it for oncology cases. What are the other types of benefits that we can have by giving mushrooms, and what other conditions could we be treating?
Well, there aren't the kinds of controlled studies that, of course, we would like to have to quote, to cite, yeah, it can do this, it could do that, the other. A lot of the information that I'm imparting does come from studies, but not in our target veterinary species, but there are a wide variety of very interesting applications that I'm suggesting be used for mushrooms. For instance, there are two mushrooms. One is called reishi, or Ganoderma lucidum, and the other is called chaga, or Echinopsis obliquus. And both of these mushrooms have these terpenes in them, these large molecules that are hydrocarbons that cross the blood-brain barrier and signal certain receptors in the brain and throughout the body, that they also can stabilize mast cell membranes. And by doing so, they actually reduce the release of histamine. So they have an antihistaminic effect. So we are seeing some benefit for the use of these two mushrooms for humans who have seasonal allergies. And we've been applying them with the animals who have seasonal allergies. And we've been finding that there is some benefit as well. Certainly not curative, but helping to improve quality of life, helping to downsize symptoms. And the beta glucans, which is one of the main immune modulating molecules that are found in the mushrooms, help to regulate the immune system better. And as you know, with allergies, we really have the immune system out of whack. It's reacting to things that are innocuous, but nonetheless, it's creating a lot of havoc in the body. And so by helping the immune system get better balanced through the use of these beta glucans and symptomatically helping to reduce the release of histamine, we have a real winner there. So that's one very good approach to it right there. There's another mushroom called cordyceps, and it's a very interesting mushroom. It's a parasitic mushroom. It parasitizes insects and is known as the caterpillar mushroom because that's famously where its mycelium grows. And the cordyceps mushroom has been shown to be very protective of the kidney. And so there are studies where there are experimentally induced chronic kidney disease. I don't really like that they do these 5/6 nephrectomies in order to model the renal failure. But nonetheless, what they're able to see is with the application of the cordyceps mushroom, they're able to get decreases in the renal parameters like creatinine and like BUN. And the nice thing about the cordyceps mushroom, for those who love our feline friends, is that it is very tasty. Cordyceps is in the same family as morels and truffles. And so as such, it has a very pleasant taste. And most cats, in my experience, and anecdotally from what I hear from others, are willing to accept it when introduced gradually and blended in with their food as a powder. So there's just two examples of things other than cancer. Because I mean, when we think about mushrooms or when we get cancer, oftentimes the first thing you think about is getting on a medicinal mushroom, because historically that's been their reputation. But they do have a wide variety of other applications as well. But getting back to the cordyceps mushroom, it's been reputed to be an aphrodisiac. And this is because it grows naturally on the high steppes of Tibet, Bhutan, and Nepal. And in the springtime, when the yak herders are up there on that alpine tundra, and the yak will break through the tundra to start grazing on the grass that's underneath it, they'll also be grazing on some of these mushroom shoots that are coming up from these caterpillars that are buried in the soil that are myceliated with the cordyceps mycelium. And shortly after they start grazing on the grass and eating the cordyceps mushrooms, they start to go into season. And so this was so from that observation, that natural observation of the yak herders, they believe that the cordyceps mushroom actually has aphrodisiacal and fertility benefits as well. And then when we apply modern science to that, we find that it actually can increase testosterone levels, and it can increase 17 beta estradiol levels. So it's fascinating how that works. And cordyceps like reishi, are both considered to be true adaptogens. And adaptogens, by the definition, the modern definition of an adaptogen, because adaptogens are known to help the body deal with stress, and adapt to stress. That's why they're called adaptogens. But in order to be a true adaptogen, there has to be evidence that they actually affect the pituitary hypothalamic adrenal axis. And so cordyceps and reishi both do that, and they do have an effect on our endocrine system. So those are just a few examples. There's a number of more examples. Even the little white button mushrooms that are so common to find, at the grocery store. I went to a mushroom conference earlier this year, and there was a researcher from a cancer center that had found that the button mushrooms have aromatase inhibitor activity, which makes them perfect to use with both breast cancer and prostate cancer. And so now they're using those more in humans. And I know one of the questions that you were going to ask me was about giving mushrooms to pets, and what about fresh mushrooms. And one of the things they found was in the study was that eating, and it wasn't about giving some kind of extract of the mushrooms, but it's about adding them to your diet. And they found that even adding a single button mushroom to your diet daily was enough to affect aromatase levels, and in the human. And so that's pretty fascinating that can happen. And you don't need much of it, but you do. But the thing about, I do need to add, if we're talking about cooking mushrooms, as I said, I do digress a little bit. But the one thing I want to add as far as cooking mushrooms is that you need to cook them. Especially the agaricus mushroom, which is the button mushrooms. They contain a mild toxin called agarotine. It's a hydrazine, and it's destroyed by cooking. It's also destroyed by storage in the refrigerator. But mushrooms have a very fibrous quality to them. And some of the actual active medicinal components in the mushroom are that fiber as well. So in order to achieve the benefits, the medicinal benefits of the mushroom, we really need to cook them. And we need to cook them in order to break down that fibrous cell wall, in order to release all the medicinal goodies that are inside that cell wall, as well as the cell wall itself, which is made up of chitin and beta glucans. And so they need to be cooked. I suggest, slicing them up so they cook through more quickly, so you don't have to cook them too long. But generally, it's thought to be at least 15 minutes of cooking would be good. And, when we try to do an actual extraction of these good beneficial ingredients in the mushroom, we'll heat it up to 90 degrees centigrade for 2 hours as the way of really disrupting that cell wall to break it down, so we can extract all the goodies and put them into a little capsule, for benefit to humans and pets.
So a lot of our listeners are veterinary rehabilitation therapists, and they treat a lot of musculoskeletal cases, so osteoarthritic cases. Are there any mushrooms that you can mention to us that could help those kind of cases?
Well, I think mushrooms have anti-inflammatory properties. They have antioxidant properties. Several mushrooms have been measured to have analgesic properties as well. So I think they could be part of a program, part of a multifactorial program that would include other things, that may even pharmaceuticals, because many of these dogs that are in rehab, and cats that are in rehab, they're painful, and they need to move very slowly as they're healing and rehabbing. So mushrooms like cordyceps, which I just mentioned, does have analgesic properties, and cordyceps has other properties as well, in terms of it being able to generate energy in the body, but it manages energy very well. So cordyceps is also being used quite a bit by athletes because it seems to enhance performance. So I would say, of all the mushrooms that I would recommend for a rehab practitioner to consider adding to one of their patients, I think that cordyceps is probably one of the better choices out there. But reishi as well is a very good mushroom for that. It has very good analgesic and antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, as well as being an adaptogen and reducing stress. And certainly pain can generate stress, when you're having, in terms of these rehab patients as well. And also maitake mushroom. Maitake mushroom is one of the most prized edible mushrooms out there, and has some very strong medicinal properties as well, including having some analgesic properties. So I think, I think for your rehabs, I think mushrooms are are one part of what could be a much a bigger program.
And when the pet owners purchase these supplements, so obviously, like you mentioned the option of actually cooking the mushrooms, like the button
Mhm.
mushrooms, and feeding them.
Mhm.
But obviously, long term, if they're going to be using them, maybe a supplement is better. Do these supplements come per different type of mushroom, or are they blended?
Both, both. If I can use real mushrooms as an example, we have different product formats. We've got bulk powders that come in pouches, very convenient. You can open them up and scoop them out. Good for the kennel, good for the barn. Um, we have it in capsules and of several different sizes. I've formulated some soft chews for the dogs. One thing that we find is that, and we have many of these in single mushroom formats, but we also have a 5 mushroom blend. And there are some studies that show that when you put multiple mushrooms together into a single blend, that you get synergy amongst the components of the mushroom, that they seem to all help each other do a better job at what they do. So, so that's where you'll see many blends out there. And some of the blends have been targeted, to certain systems, to certain clinical outcomes, those sorts of things. And so it's kind of fun, because there's a wide variety of applications that each mushroom has. And so this is one of the things that I do, and one of the things I've been doing for the last 30 years, which is creating products for pets. And I do that by understanding the nature of the ingredients and what I'm trying to put together. It's almost like cooking, cooking a gourmet meal. I really kind of enjoy doing that. And so we're actually coming out with some products that are blended, not just in terms of multiple mushrooms, but also in terms of adding into it nutraceuticals, maybe like green lipped mussel, adding in some things like some nutraceuticals like palmitoyl ethanolamide, PEA, which has been shown in some studies to be very good for allergies and pain. And so when we make a complex formula like that, you have even more value to it. For instance, my relaxed chews use lion's mane, and lion's mane is a mushroom right now that's the most popular mushroom in North America because of its ability to reduce stress, because of its value to cognition, and also its value to memory. And it seems like our population, especially as it's aging, is starting to have some memory issues and some cognition issues. We're seeing more dementia. There's some studies with lion's mane that show that it actually can help to stabilize patients who have early Alzheimer's. Some good objective studies that way. So early on, Alzheimer's is a good bet. I have reishi in there as well. Reishi is used by Zen masters as a meditation aid. So I have those combined, but I put some tryptophan in there to help with calming. I put some catnip and valerian in there to help with calming. So I mean, it's kind of fun. But yes, mushrooms work well with other ingredients as well, and I think probably work best as part of a complex formula like that.
Are there any major side effects or risks that can happen when you're treating with mushrooms?
Happily, very few, if any. I think probably the biggest kind of side effect we might see is more idiosyncratic, that an individual animal is perhaps not adapted to that particular the introduction of something new like a mushroom. They may develop diarrhea. I've heard a couple of cases, not very common, of animals becoming a bit allergic to the mushrooms. And there actually is a defined condition with shiitake mushroom in humans. That there have been some studies and some publications about humans being allergic to the shiitake mushroom as well. But basically, no. And there's very few interactions with other drugs as well. Certainly, looking at anticoagulant agents, that would be and something that we would want to be careful with. But really, there's very, very little in the literature that indicates any problem when you're using mushrooms, even with chemotherapy. There's a number of studies that show benefits to the use of mushrooms with chemotherapy. It actually enhances outcomes, reduces side effects. Mushrooms also can help with the bone, when we have issues with the bone marrow, with chemotherapy or radiation or the cancer itself. Mushrooms have been shown to stimulate the stem cells in the bone marrow to increase more red blood cell production or more white blood cell production. They do have an effect on stem cells as well. So they're really in many ways I kind of call them a Swiss Army knife, because they kind of have a lot of applications, a lot of uses, and then it's just a matter of really getting enough of it and recognizing that mushrooms are really more of a food. They're more of a functional food, more of a superfood, and work best not as a drug when just given for a short period of time, but work best when they become part of a lifestyle, when they're given on a daily basis regularly. There's a new phenomenon, like mushrooms will stimulate the immune system, primarily the innate immune system, but there's evidence now that with the use of mushrooms, the beta glucans actually work on the epigenetics of stem cells in the bone marrow to help to imprint them with some memory and of some of the pathogens they encounter. So even though it's not the same as the acquired immune system with long-term memory of pathogens they encounter, it does invest on the immune system a certain training. So they're more vigilant and the immune system is able to respond more rapidly due to this memory that's been embedded in the epigenetics of the stem cells in the bone marrow. I mean, it's an incredible field. For a long time, I was really into cannabis. I still am, and the science around cannabis is huge. The endocannabinoid system, something we didn't know about until the 1990s. But I will say that mushrooms outplay cannabis in terms of the complexity and the wide variety of different applications that you can use them for. But there are many applications which I think benefit from the use of both cannabis and mushrooms as well.
I mean, it's very clear you have an amazing knowledge of mushrooms, and I can see you're very passionate about it. And you've actually written a book, haven't you?
Well,
Tell us about the book that you're publishing,
thank
and
you.
where people can find it if they're wanting to purchase it.
Yeah, it's been a 3-year process, and I'm at the end of the tunnel. I can see that light, and it's frustrating. I wish it were already out. Seems like just when I think I'm about ready to get it done, there's some new thing I have to do. But we are close. I think we're probably about a month away. It's called "There's a Mushroom for That," and I've written it primarily to be good for the pet parent, but it's at a level. There's about 80 references in it. So it also is really good as an entry level for a veterinarian, because it is well referenced and there's a lot of information in it. And in it, I go through 7 stories that I tell of patients I've seen with 6 different conditions, things like allergies and arthritis and cancer and digestive issues and epilepsy. And wellness. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's called "There's a Mushroom for That." But I also have a lot of information about cannabis. The book I published before this was called "Medical Marijuana and Your Pet," and that was published in 2015. And since then, there's been so much new research that I really needed to update it. And then at the same time as mushrooms were starting to gain a lot of interest for the consumer, I decided, let's switch and make the focus mushrooms, but let's make sure we also have a heavy amount of information about cannabis as well. And in this book, I talk about what the conventional problem is, the conventional understanding of the problem we're talking about, what the integrative approach is, not just with mushrooms and cannabis, but also with the use of nutraceuticals and diet and lifestyle and some of the new advanced holistic methods we have, like, let's say, the pulsed electromagnetic force loop, soft laser, things that are common tools that, of the rehab specialist as well.
And where would somebody be able to find that book? I know you're still publishing it.
Well,
What website would
it'll
you go
be
to?
it'll be for sale on Amazon, and I have a website, wellpetdispensary.com. People can go there and sign up for the newsletter, and we will be keeping people advised through that newsletter. I'm kind of late to the game when it comes to having, a well-developed social media platform, working on it. So right now, I think the website and the newsletter that we send out weekly with the website is probably the very best way to do that. But I'm hopeful soon it'll be on Amazon and very easy to find.
And if listeners are looking to access mushrooms, what website would they go to purchase them?
Well, realmushrooms.com is the website for the company I'm with. And I know that we are starting to go global, and I know that your audience is international. You're in South Africa, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think we have just recently gone to UK. So I'm not certain that I have enough information to be exact, but I can get back to you as far as where, and that you can then put on your, on the information around your podcast.
Awesome, Robert. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting to you. And I really, really love all the energy that you have around mushrooms. And it's an area which I don't know a lot about. So I've really learned a lot today. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you for having me on here today, and thank you for letting me spout a bit about my passion for mushrooms. Thank you so much.
It's wonderful. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacao Vet. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out at curacao.org. Please also don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday the 8th of November in 2025. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Onlinepethealth members, you get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.